MG Lederman. How are you?
Good, just waking up. How are you this morning?
Good, man. Before we talk about OK Doomer, I wanted to ask you a couple of things I was curious about that I don't know if we talked about before. Did you start playing piano when you were at a really young age? I mean, when did you start? Was that the first thing you did was play piano?
Yeah, when I was I think I was like 4 years old. I used to like kind of like mimic, like songs from TV and stuff. And my parents thought it was hilarious. And my grandmother was a piano player. My mom was an opera singer, musical family. And so,
Yeah.
like, well, we can send him for piano lessons early. So I started taking lessons when I was really young, like classical and stuff like that.
Was there a piano in the house?
There was three. My dad was a
Wow.
tuner rebuilder, and we had a Chickering and two Steinways. So yeah, it was crazy.
Wow. So was it piano for a long time? I mean, when did the bass come into play? Was that like much later on?
Yeah, well, like when I first started playing in bands in high school and like mid '80s, I started out playing like synthesizer. And then
Really?
like I want to be in a rock band, but I'm playing synthesizer. It just didn't feel too rock and roll. And I wanted to play guitar, but bass made a little more sense. And I had both. And so I just started incorporating some bass, and then I went full on bass player for years after that. So
Wow. Yeah, I know that. I mean, I realize that with Victory at Sea and all that. Um, when you said high school, were you in a lot of bands before Victory at Sea?
well, I was in a band called Kiva in high school, with the drummer was one of my best friends, and he's in a couple bands out in LA and owns a studio out there. What's the latest band? Car Seat, or sorry, Child Seat.
Oh, he's in a band called Child Seat now?
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good. Like they're really like synthy '80s band. And then he was in a band called Bijou, and before that, and he was in Chicago in a band called Like Them, which is a good indie rock band.
What high school did you guys go to?
Brookline High School,
Brookline High.
local,
Did you go to school with Theo Epstein?
probably.
He ended up becoming one of the big execs at the Red Sox. I don't know if you ever heard that name.
Yeah,
I just figured I'd throw that out there.
but yeah, Conan O'Brien went there. He's a
Yeah, well, it's a famous part of Boston, Brookline, definitely. So, before we talk about your solo stuff, I wanted to talk about Victory at Sea because you probably heard, I know you heard that I did a whole show about the Memories Fade album because it's like one of my favorite records. But I want to lead our way up to that. Victory at Sea's first EP came out in 1998. Was that like right when the band, like when did the band form? Was it much
uh,
before that?
It was about I think the first Victory at Sea shows before I joined the band, when it was just Mona and our original drummer Christina Files, um, were in '95, and they were a two piece. And
Oh,
then
they were. Oh,
I convinced them to let me play bass, and so that was around '96, and so it took us a little while to get going before we recorded the first EP.
yeah. And then, you had like The Dark is Just a Night in 99, Carousel in '01, The Good Night rather in 2002, and then Memories Fade. What's really interesting to me that I wanted to ask you about is when did you guys and how did you guys decide that you wanted to incorporate the piano into the music? 'Cause I think that started in The Good Night a little bit, and
Yeah,
then in the violin too. I mean, because Memories Fade, the piano and the violin are so prevalent. How did all of that start happening? Because that's an incredible switch that you guys went through there.
yeah. Well, I had been playing piano with Talia Zedek for a little bit, and and I started like writing on piano, and then I had a stage piano at home, so like I'd be playing the piano, and Mona started coming up with guitar stuff to go along with it, and we decided like why not? There's no rules telling us I have to play bass.
Yeah.
Piano covers a lot of the bass, obviously, with my left hand. So, um, yeah, so we started incorporating it a bit, and then our drummer that was on the Goodnight, Carl Ekloff, had a friend who played violin, Taro Hatanaka, and he was like, "Why don't we have my friend come down since we're like, going more orchestral?" So it
Hmm.
just kind of naturally happened. But like that was my favorite era of the band.
Yeah, I mean, so Mona was on board right from the start with the piano and the violin.
Yeah, I think it was just a matter of like it still sounded like us, and we wanted to like expand on what we were doing. So it was like a natural step for us to become more of a orchestral, like trying to make these epic songs. There's more sonic variety when you can like incorporate other instruments. So
Yeah, there
it,
was there was definitely a difference between Carousel and The Good Night, but a lot of that I think had to do with the drummer because Finn was he was really a over the top drummer. How did you guys go from Christina to Finn and then Carl was next after? No,
yeah,
Carl was next.
Carl was next
That
after.
must have been difficult because they're completely different drummers.
Yeah, I know. Mona like used to say like that she had thought it felt like it was different bands with each drummer, but
Yeah.
it was, I mean, it's still like the core of the band was Mona Elliott and myself, and Finney was like he came in. Basically, we did a tour of Europe with Christina Files after the Good Night. I'm sorry, after the Dark Is Just the Night came out, and she left the band after, and we had a tour coming up very soon after, and we actually asked Dan McCarthy, the drummer from Helms, if he would fill,
Mhm.
and he said, like, I got a lot of stuff going on, but my friend Finney, you guys know him, like he'd totally be able to do it. He paints houses, he can take the time off work. So like we were like, yeah, get us his phone number. So next thing you know, we're rehearsing and on tour. It was like 2 3 weeks lead time, and he's just a great guy. Like he's way over the top compared to Christina, obviously, but
Yeah.
he's a great guy to tour with, sweetheart, and like it just kind of worked in, like, and we're like, well, this we can work with this, so
Was that a US tour?
yes, it was a tour in. It was like the East Coast and Midwest with the Shipping News, which was like a touch and go band.
Right.
And
Well, I know you know that I love the Carousel record because we've talked about that many times, but it's weird because I like all your records, but I went through this metamorphosis myself with your sound, and it is like almost two different bands for me when I hear Carousel and then I hear Memories Fade. Um, Mona Elliott, what a prolific songwriter. I mean, you go all the way back to Spore, and you know that she always had this talent, but it seems like her songwriting really began to progress more and more as the band progressed. Did you notice that about her
yeah,
songwriting?
absolutely. A lot of the time, like uh, when we lived together, we were a couple at the time. I went out all the time. I was like always at the Middle East or TT's going to a show, and she was like more of a homebody, and she'd stay in and be strumming her guitar, and I'd come home and she'd be like, have another new song. She was always writing.
A songwriting machine, huh?
Yeah, and also like her lyrics are just I don't know how she does it, but she's very good at like writing like this is the song, this is what it's about, and then have a lyric sheet with like a few lines maybe that she'd edit over time, but pretty much a done song like in one like an hour or two, which I always thought was amazing. I still think is amazing. It takes me months to like be happy with lyrics is the hardest thing for me. So
What was the process like? She would play you the song on guitar, and then you just go to the space and work it all out, or did you work?
totally. We spent a lot of time at the practice space. Um, Also, we had, we had the setup at home we had a tiny apartment in Somerville. So we were always working on songs. It was like it was cool because like the band was so like such a huge part of both of our lives, like so we were always working on it.
Yeah, and you guys always had labels too, so you had some support.
Yeah. It was a different time back then when, there were a lot of indie labels and we were fortunate to like get picked up by like some labels that had like decent bands that were already touring. So like, you know, we'll do a record and then they're like, oh, we know this booking agent. They like you, so it worked out for us. It was a good time for playing music.
What did your fan base think of the change that happened between Carousel and The Good Night?
I mean, as far as I'm aware, like I didn't know people obviously noticed it was a little different, but um, everything just fell into place. I don't think anybody was like completely surprised. Like bands change over time, so
On the Memories Fade record, I could talk about every single song on the record, but I picked three songs out that I really, really love. And I was hoping that maybe you could give me a little feedback on these. I know we talked one time about Logan's Way, so I wanted to start with that because that song has some very interesting lyrics and time changes and everything. Can you talk about that one for a second?
well, yeah, that song is about Mona's grandmother's funeral. She grew up on Logan Way in Southie, so that's where the title came from. But it was just it was like a rainy, like windy day, blustery, and it was a big funeral in Southie and big church. And I'm Jewish, so I
Yeah.
don't spend a lot of time in church, but it was very intense, and that's what the lyrics are about.
Yeah,
Um,
she refers to a priest or something in the middle of the song.
yeah, the the priest came around to like he went to like he was shaking everybody's hands and doing
Man of God, is that
stuff.
what she called him? Man of
Man,
God?
man of cloth, I
Man
believe.
of Cloth.
Yeah. But so the thing is, because like I'm not, used to being in churches, and I went to shake his hand, and he just completely passed by me. She
Oh,
sort of like, that it was like he wouldn't shake her hand because it made more sense that like if she said he wouldn't shake Mel's hand, it was probably just like it was just an awkward moment. I don't know what to do in a church, you know.
so she seems like one of those people that could write a song about any experience, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And she wrote about family a lot, like she had, like really interesting childhood and good for songwriting,
She grew up in Southie, right? You
Yeah,
said?
Healthy and
Yeah.
then Cambridge after that. They moved to Cambridge when she was in high school, I believe.
The other track I liked was Break the Spell.
Oh,
Just
Breakup Day, you mean?
I'm
Breakup Day.
sorry, Break of Day. Just a brilliant song. Break of Day. Sorry,
Yeah,
brilliant.
that song's like 10 minutes long, too.
Yeah. Seven something, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, that's one of my favorites on the album.
And Happy for You is the third song, which is just
Yeah.
these songs kind of sound like breakup songs to me.
Yeah. I mean, Breakup Day sort of was a breakup song, and because we were a couple, it was kind of about me, which is it's kind of weird to be playing along to a song like the lyrics are fitted
Did
for
you feel
myself.
like the lyrics were about you?
Yeah, yeah, I knew they were about me, but we were together for a while, and couples and bands, you got to expect that sort of thing. It's a little awkward, but what are you gonna do,
Well, you made it to another record, so I don't know if you broke up before the last record
No,
or you...
we didn't. No, we broke up after the last record.
Yeah, the painful breakups are the ones that seem to take a long time. I've been there. I understand that. That's really
Yeah.
wow. Um, okay, so I just wanted to talk about Victory at Sea for a
Yeah.
couple of minutes because I think Victory at Sea is one of the most underrated bands ever to emerge from the Boston scene. And I think that record, Memories Fade, a lot of people will say All Your Things Are Gone or like their favorite, but for some reason, Memories Fade is the one that really gets me. it gets me in a lot of. I reached out to Mona and wanted her to come on the show, but she's kind of moved on with her
Yeah,
life away from music, and I respect that.
doing
You know,
visual art now. So
yeah,
yeah, she
yeah.
lives out
We
on.
we follow each other on social media, and she's. I told her she has an open invitation, so if she ever wants to,
Well,
she can
hopefully
come on the show.
she'll come on someday.
Um, you had a little bit of a break in between 2005 and 2010. Were you
Um,
didn't, were
yeah,
you with Talia at that time?
yeah, I was playing with Talia Zedek
Yeah.
band. And also I started like doing like the MG Letterman thing right after Victory at Sea broke up, so like around 2006. But we didn't. We actually the original lineup of the MG Letterman, which was like completely different. We had a violin player and everything. Recorded an album, but it wasn't. I mean, I wasn't like a front guy. It was like a learning experience, and we never released that album. So
Is that What Ifs and Bad Memories?
no, that What Ifs and Bad Memories is actually the first MG Letterman
Couldn't
album.
find that one. I can't find that one.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear it.
yeah, I'll give you a copy. The label that put it out, it's called Exotic Fever Records, and out of Philadelphia, just couldn't host it anymore. So that's why it's not online. It's actually on our Bandcamp page, though. So
You did say something earlier that struck me. You were playing piano with Talia before you started playing piano with Victory at Sea. Did you say that?
yeah, in 2000, when Talia was making her first solo record after Come, it was called Been Here and Gone. She asked me, like, she knew that I play piano.
It's a great record.
Asked me if I think she asked me if I would play some piano on the album. So that's when I was very nervous too, and like Talia Zedek asked you to play piano. Of course, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be nervous. But so we went out to Hudson, New York, like it's beautiful, like studio in a church on the Hudson River, and recorded that album. And I started playing some shows, sporadically with her when I wasn't on tour with Victor at Sea. So yeah, that's when I first started playing like piano in like a rock and roll setting.
I went a little out of order here and I apologize. So did Mona hear you playing with Talia and then say, hey, maybe we should incorporate that into our sound?
Yeah, I think it was like both of us were like, why not?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I keep going back to
No
Victory at
worries.
Sea. I knew that would happen. Um, the Ghost record that came out in 2014 is when I got my first real dose of MG Letterman. And Paul Janovitz, who passed away a few years ago, did you guys play together for a long time? He played drums on that record.
No, we had the drummer on our first record, Sean Mullen, from What Ifs and Bad Memories, left the band, and Mike Joy and I were still like writing songs, and we wanted to make a record. And I knew Paul from like Cold Water Flat days, and like
Yeah.
around. And I ran into him one day, and he said, I play on some drums nowadays. Like, if you ever need a drummer, and it just so happened we were looking for a drummer, and so we asked him to come down to the space, and we basically, we only played a couple shows with Paul, and then we made the record, and then Paul went on to do more Paul stuff. So it was a short-lived thing, but missed the
Yeah.
guy.
I mean, I on that record, you had Talia came on and sang, but I think we've talked about this before. I love the song Restaurant, and you had Ian Adams and Sarah Borges, I believe, both chorus singing the chorus with you on that, with Andrew Schneider recording. That seems like that might have been a very interesting recording session because Talia's on there as well. That must have been fun.
That was really, we did it at New Alliance when it was on Brookline Street in Cambridge. The weird thing about that record is originally we were supposed to record it, Translator Audio, Andrew Schneider's studio in New York, which had just opened, like literally opened like a couple months before Hurricane Sandy happened, and the studio was completely destroyed by like the Gowanus Canal overflow. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it was heartbreaking, but
So Andrew came up to Cambridge and did it with you there?
he still was able to like, we had this time booked, and he was like, why don't we do it at New Alliance? And he had worked there previously, and Alvin Long, said, come, yeah, of course, we'll clear the schedule for you guys. So it was great. We didn't like, I think we did that whole session in like 4 days. It was like a quick Andrews fast.
I was living in Pittsburgh during that whole period, but I remember you played a bunch of shows with the Charms when I was managing them.
Yeah,
And that was around the support. I believe that was the support for I'm Ghost
yeah,
record, right? Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. So those were some of like our best shows. Like I love the Charms. And also thank you for having us.
Oh yeah, yeah. I wish I could have been at some of those shows, but I wasn't around. Unfortunately, I missed those. Um, and then, I know you put out, I always have trouble pronouncing this, Anedonia. Is that how you say it?
Anadonia.
Anedonia. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the H is silent, and I'm
Yeah. That
trying.
was the first record. So like I kind of the band with Mike Joy and Sean had come back to the band after Paul Janowitz, and we did that for a while, and then it kind of like fizzled out. Um, and then I was like dealing with my, aging parents, and like I had a little apartment in Rhode Island and was driving back and forth, and music kind of, for the first time in my life since I started playing, it kind of took a back seat to stuff. I was still writing stuff, but so like I took like a year or two off, and then I was fortunate to meet my current drummer Mario Passi. Like it was during COVID, actually. I did a live set on Facebook, and he liked it, and he said, "Why don't you come down and record?"
I
So
remember that. I saw that live set you did, actually. Yeah,
that's
I did. Because we were hanging out during that period. That's
yeah,
when we kind of started hanging out more. Um, I was going to ask you about so Mario heard you on Facebook for the first time?
yeah, and he has a home recording studio, and he said, if you ever want to like record some solo stuff, why don't you come down? And it took it was like another year and a half or two years before we actually like got together, and I went down and recorded a bunch of solo songs, and he said I could play a little drums. So next thing you know, he's the drummer, and um, you know, it's been great.
What about Tom? How did you meet Tom?
Well, I've known Tom for years, actually, just through like going to shows and stuff. And I always liked his guitar playing. And I was talking to Mario, and I said, I know this guitar player that like would work with us, and he's also a singer, so background vocals, and he lives in Framingham, where Mario's studio is. So I said,
Oh,
why don't we get in touch with him? And within like a week, I think he was at the practice space, like working on songs with us. It worked out.
when did that start about?
Um, so I think it was like 3 years ago. About
3 years ago. So before the record.
yeah,
Yeah.
before I yeah.
Before Anadonia. I said it right that time, right? Sorry, I had to get that. Yeah, I know. So I know that you've been talking about Mario Studio and working out there with him for a while. So I mean, and I think what you guys are doing is really, really good. I mean, it started with the last record, and now, so you came up with a title for your new record, which I believe is coming out later in the year. But you've already announced the title of well, the record's already done. So talk about what you decided to do with the singles and then releasing the record. Okay, Doomer, by the way, is the name
Yeah.
of it.
Well, I'm the doomer first off. The songs like I write sad songs on the piano, and some of them are very over the top. Like, I decided to just go for it, the full on like depression, sitting in a dark apartment, like alone, stuff like that. And that's where I came up with the "Okay Doomer," which I thought it was kind of funny. Like I was thinking along the lines of like a Warren Zevon album title, like "My Ride's Here," for example, and he's dying. So it's kind of tongue in cheek. But anyway, we started working on the songs about a year ago, and then over the winter we tracked all winter, and we just got it mastered by Jeff and Constance Tinty over at Peerless, and we decided we're going to release like 3 singles over the summer, and then drop the full album in September because I think it's a fall winter album. Yeah, because we made it over the fall and winter, and also because of me. I'm not
That's
a '60s kind of guy.
that's interesting, man. That's interesting that the way you approach that. Um, I listen, well, I've heard the whole, I'm one of the people that has the record. Thank you, by the way, for letting me hear it. Everybody Moves Away is the first single, right?
Yeah,
And that is on Bandcamp already.
yeah, that came out last Friday. So
You know, I listened to that song a few times and then I listened to it again, and I don't know if there's any correlation at all here, but it reminds me of Steve Wynn and Dream Syndicate. I don't know if you ever
I
remember.
really, no, I
Yeah,
love.
I don't know if you remember the band Dream Syndicate, but you kind of sound a little like Steve Wynn. And I mean that as a total compliment.
Yeah, I take that as a compliment. So thank you. Yeah, I mean that's not. I don't really like listen to Steve Wynn, but I've heard a lot of stuff. Cause I know Talia and Chris Brokaw played with him for a while, and I've always, had a lot of respect for. So thank you.
Yeah, he's got like an interesting voice, and so don't you. And I remember, I'll tell you a story. I was living in Marina Del Rey around 90, 91, 92, around that time. And there was this private strand that you walk on, which, you have to go down an alley to get to it. It's like the rich people section of Marina Del Rey. And I'm walking down there one day, and all of a sudden there's Steve Wynn. And I recognized him, and we started talking to each other, and we kind of became friendly. And then, he played TT the Bears like around 2000, I think it was. And I got Chili Kurt's combo to play with him at TT's, which is really cool. And it was really funny because that night I didn't know them and I didn't see their set, but the Charms played their first
Really?
gig.
Um,
Yeah, that night. Yeah.
Boston, Boston. It's so small.
But
Like,
I didn't, I missed their set. And I remember seeing these two girls walking around with glitter all over their face, and it was Ellie and Kat. But I didn't even realize it was Ellie from Flexi at that time. I figured this, I put this all together after the fact, but a little Steve Wynn story there at TT the Bears. He's a great guy. The song Everybody Moves Away. It's pretty dark, man. What's going on in this song, man?
yeah, I wrote that song about 12 years ago when my sister and brother-in-law and my niece and nephews, they moved from Cambridge to Wayland, and I feel like it took years for playing that song for it to come together enough to record it. I was doing it actually with a former lineup, like live, but
Wow, it's an
yeah,
old song.
yeah, old song. But anyway, like a lot of the songs on OK Doomer are about like moving, leaving, being alone in a different, in a new city or a different part of town. So it kind of fit in with this group of songs, and we started playing it, and I thought it would work on this record. So
So I always ask people, songwriters this question. I already know the answer, but you can elaborate on it. Some people write out of emotion and some people write because they force themselves to write. You're totally an emotion writer.
yeah.
Talk about that and what makes you, when do you start getting the feeling? Do you have to be depressed? Do you have to be happy? What does it all start happening for you?
Honestly, recently I've been writing a lot in my like while I'm like I have like I bad insomnia sometimes, so I'll like go to sleep okay, but then wake up 2 hours later and be up for 3 hours. So I'll sit there and I have a notebook and and things pop into my head, and I have like books and books of lyrics that like are in songs, but sometimes I'm like, we'll be working on a part at practice, like, like a piano, drum, guitar thing, and I'll pull out the notebook and something will work. Other times I'll sit down and write a whole song, but that's like rare, that I wish I could do that all the time because I'd be a lot more prolific. Like our records are all like 8 to 10 songs long maximum. And I mean, I like that because I grew up with like vinyl. So, not having like 22 songs on your CD wasn't like, a crazy thing. I
Uh,
also feel like it's like easier to digest an album as like a full, like
yeah.
album if it's not too long. So
Well, I think you know that I love vinyl and I like flipping the records over too. Um, do you ever write, do you always write the music first and then go to your notebook? Or do you, I mean, is it poems and is it music and then you put them together? I mean, how's that work?
well, sometimes I'll wake up and have like a melody stuck in my head with a lyric, so I'll like do a voice memo of it, and then I can listen back and kind of like put it to piano and then show it to Mario, like, hey, what do you think of this? So like that's been happening a lot more recently. So that's where like a lot of the newer songs come from is literally like you know having insomnia and waking up and having a like a melody in my head. So it's kind of, my neighbors must think I'm like totally nuts because I'm like singing into my phone at 5 a.m.
Did you participate in any of the songwriting? I'm sure it says this on the records, but I didn't notice. Sorry. Did you participate in along the songwriting with Victory at Sea, or was,
Oh yeah, yeah. It was definitely like a collaborative effort on the most part. I mean, a lot of the songs were like Mona finished the song and then we, work on the arrangement. But a lot of times it was, it would songs would come from like us, jamming at practice.
all her lyrics though, right?
But yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't write lyrics in that band.
Yeah, that's what I meant,
Other
kind of meant.
work I've done that. I've actually been the like front guy, like singer songwriter lyrics guy, which I actually like. It puts a lot of pressure on me because I'm very like insecure about my writing. So that's why it takes me like 12 years to release a song sometimes. But you understand.
But yeah, there's a lot of songwriters I talk to that have those notebooks and they go back and they find something from way back and incorporate it into the new stuff. Do you have a lot of songs done that you have not released yet?
Yeah, like a few songs on OK Doomer are songs that were like finished with the former lineup, and then I was like, well, this never got released, so like, here's this song, guys, and like some of the arrangements are exactly the same. Sometimes they're different, but Mario and Tom, their parts are completely their own. So that's how that works out lately.
Are they involved in the songwriting process at all?
Yeah, definitely. Like the songs usually start with like, I'll have a part or two parts, but yeah, arranging and stuff like that. And like Tom does a lot of backing vocals, which, excuse me, I'm really happy to have like such a like good. He's got a great voice, and I think we sound good singing together. So it adds another like layer to what we're doing.
What does that mean as far as the songwriting goes, as far as you go? Because different people have a different approach. Do they get a credit for
Yeah,
participating? They
yeah.
do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I mean, honestly, like if I didn't already have records out under MG Letterman, I would have like we would have maybe started it, like got a band name and started something new. But I wanted to be able to like have a back catalog to like play songs off of, and also I've been releasing albums under MG since 2010, so I didn't want to like lose those songs and all that work.
Yeah, I got to ask you about there's someone else that has a very similar name to
Yeah,
yours.
the bane of my existence. I mean, he's good, but like I've been doing this for so much longer, and like we've actually thought like of just calling it Mel Lederman because people like I get tagged in like posts like about MJ Lenderman, who is not me, you know?
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
Mjlenderman. So it's not the exact same spelling.
I mean, I honestly like I've listened to some of his stuff and I was like, I can't hate it. It's like it's really well done, but like, can he just not have names similar to like? It's very confusing.
Yeah, I think there was another band called Victory at Sea as well. You know, it happens, I mean,
There was a band called A Victory at Sea at like 10 years after we broke up. That
okay. So
like a
not
band, but what are you gonna do? You know, there's
Yeah,
only
well, that's been a
name, but
that's been going.
like MG Letterman is my name. My full name's Melvin Jeffrey Letterman. So who would think that somebody would have a name so similar? Like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it when I started getting like all these like tagging like MJ, and I'm like, who is this guy? You know?
But
So,
you've never heard from him or his people, have you?
no, but if he like wants to offer us a lot of money, we might change the name to Mel Letterman or something.
Oh God, it might, you never know,
He's been
man.
around 15 years longer. That's the thing, you know? So, anyway, what can you do?
You know, it's a, like I said, it's a familiar problem that has existed for years in the music business. You got like a band that comes along, but you find out there's another band by that name. We were talking about the Charms before. There was a Charms from like San Diego or something, and they own the charms.com. And no matter what we did, we couldn't get it from them. That's why it ended up being the charms.net. And, you know, Megadeth, I don't know if you ever heard their story. There was another band called Megadeth, and they had to pay off that band. And the
Really?
neighborhoods actually, you know, it's I could go on and on. I mean, it's like one of those familiar trends. So, have you been going out a lot and seeing bands the last year or so? I mean, what have you been doing? I mean, since do you go to a lot of shows?
Lately, I've been actually, I mean, it's been the winter, so I've been just going to, Mario's studio and like working on like the record. That's mostly what I've been doing. That's my social life. And mostly just like staying home and watching movies and stuff because it's the winter. But now that it's getting nice out, I've been trying to like get out of the house more. So I have a show coming up on Friday, which is exciting because we haven't played a show since October at the Square Root. This will air after the show, so I'm not plugging it too much, but I'm excited. It's with Amber Angelina and Daphne Blue Underworld, who are both excellent.
Cool, man. Do you have any other shows booked that are coming up later on?
No, as of now, we don't, but like, we'll probably try to book a couple over, like, I want to do like a record release show for September, when the full album's out. And if somebody wanted to offer us, a slot, a show over the summer, like right now, like we're mostly like focused on releasing the singles. And I'd love to like get this band on tour. I would love to get us to Europe. I know I've said this on past shows because like I've always all the bands I've been in have always done better over there. But right now, the state of the world is a little like if
Yeah.
so we're just trying to like take it easy and like release the singles and like we already started working on some new stuff for the next album, on some arrangements. So that's been cool.
Well, I know someone like you that spent years and years and years touring. I mean, it's probably you've reached a certain age and you're like, well, I don't know if I can do that anymore.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
I,
I love touring and I love like being in a different place every night and like but I'm also a lot older now, and I'm hoping that I'll be all right for it. That's the plan, but it's also like it's a different world, and it's harder to like book a tour. I don't have a booking agent. I don't even know who books bands anymore. Most of the like I do around town in Boston and stuff, but like bringing us to Italy seems like a beautiful idea, but the Italian booking agents that I know are like working with either huge bands or they're not booking shows anymore. So even if we could get over for like a few shows, I'd love to go to Italy because especially because Mario is Italian and he's never been to Italy and he's got relatives there. So if we could get a few shows there, it would be just like even just treat it as a vacation, and it'll be fun and we get to play some beautiful places.
set a goal for yourself and
That's
do it, man.
maybe
That's
20. Yeah.
I mean, I've been to Italy a couple times and I have relatives there and I love Italy. So if that's one of your places you want to go, I would definitely try and get there.
I don't.
Um,
I'd love to get us to like Berlin. I love playing Berlin with Talia band and like the last show that I played with her there was just like it was so much fun, and like I love that city. Like there's a few places where like if we could do a short tour, which I think logistically is not insane, like that we'd just do a few shows here and there and not go over for 6 weeks like like I used to do, then that's doable. So I am gonna set that goal for myself, and I know those guys are on board with it.
Do you still talk to Talia Zedek a lot?
Yeah, not as much as when I was in her band. I talked to her the other night though, and yeah, it's always great to talk to Talia.
Yeah, I love Talia. You know that already. We've talked about her many times. She's one of the greats to come from the Boston scene. Absolutely. Well, hey man, it sounds like you have a good plan and you definitely have a good record because I've heard it. So I'm going to give it a positive vibe right now.
It's funny,
And
record called "Okay Doomer" of Positive Vibe.
well, I mean, people come up with whatever title they want. I listen to the songs and I think the songs are good. So, and I've been a fan of yours for a while. And obviously, we spent like a little while here talking about Victory at Sea. And do you think that Victory at Sea will ever? I mean, I know Mona's kind of retired now, but do you think if the opportunity ever came up, there'd ever be like a reunion show or anything?
As far as I'm concerned, I'd be all for it, but you never know. Never say never though. So maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, it's such a great body of work. Oh my
Thank you.
God.
I love playing those songs too. Like we did a reunion show in 2012, and it was just great to like go back and revisit and also hang out with like Taro flew into Boston from Tokyo to play the one show. It was just like a nice like time. I'm
Yeah,
the
it would have to be a Memories Fade era show.
I would want to do Memories Fade and All Your Things Are Gone like we did last time, because those to me are like the definitive albums. And that's the last stuff we worked on. But
Yeah, I know a lot of people love that last record. I love it too, but I just got hooked on the previous one. I mean, I don't, you know what it was, man? I think I told you this privately, but I was kind of going through like a breakup. And it like listening to that record when you're going through a breakup, if you're out there and you want a good breakup record, people, Memories Fade.
I,
It's
I agree with that.
it's just because you know what? It's sad, but it's happy too. It's like it has a positive message the underlining, like happy for you is positive, even though it's a breakup song.
Totally. I mean, that was the point. That's what we were going for. So,
Yeah. Hey, Mel, thanks a lot, man. It's always good talking to you. You know, you're always welcome on the show. I'm
for
sure
having me.
you,
This is my third time on the show, and I always love talking to you.
and there'll probably be a fourth and a fifth. And
We'll just keep doing it till we're dead and gone.
all right, man. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Have a good day.
All right.